I think I found a hidden gem Casio. You see, recently I reviewed the new Casio Automatic, and although spec-wise, great value on paper, it had a couple of quality control issues that personally let me down, and generally speaking, I just didn't really vibe with the design. And the craziest part of the whole thing is that I've actually had people saying that I'm a Casio hater, which is funny because, since I started reviewing watches on YouTube, I've basically said nothing but good things about Casio. But I suppose if you leave one mixed review on a watch, you deserve loads of abuse online. That's how it works these days. But in an attempt to genuinely right some wrongs, I instantly, after reviewing that Casio Automatic, went out and bought another Casio. At the moment, everybody's talking about the Casio Automatic, but there's some models that are seriously underrated that nobody's talking about. Also, guys, I need to speak to you. So, we're on the road to 100,000 subscribers. We're actually getting pretty close now. Genuinely, it is a life dream of mine to hit 100,000 subscribers, so if you could hit the subscribe button, honestly, I'll be so grateful. So this is part of the Casio Edifice range, the same range as the Automatic. However, this one is quartz, like every single Casio for the last 20 years. And, part of the reason I think why I didn't quite vibe with the Casio Automatic was because of the fact it was an automatic. There are quite literally thousands of automatic watches out there for around the same price as the Casio Automatic. However, when it comes to quartz watches, Casio, in my opinion, are some of the best. And this watch is a great example of that. This watch is sporty, but in a vintage sort of way. The case looks like it's right out of the 1970s. I actually think this watch has got PRX vibes, with the flat case and that pronounced bezel. However, the benefit of this one is this is not an integrated bracelet watch. It features a regular lug, which means you can wear it on any strap. Personally, the chronograph is a style of watch that I adore, which is strange because I didn't actually used to vibe with the chronograph. I'd say it was probably my least favorite style of watch. The chronograph is one of those weird things where you need to find the right one for you. Now, that's happened to me twice now. I've got two chronographs that I adore. Number one, the Rue TPS, a super colourful chronograph with a beautiful K-shape and just a dial design that's fun, quirky, and something you don't see very often. And then second, I got lucky again with my Studio Underdog Goofy Panda. Again, beautiful dial design, also this time a mechanical chronograph, which is, a little bit different than the other chronographs I've had in the past. Just another one that's fun, quirky, and full of character. And I think this Casio is along that same sort of line. Sure, it's not quite as out there in terms of the design, but I think the overall package in terms of the case silhouette, how the watch wears, it's got enough quirk to it that, you sort of fall in love with it. Now, you don't always get stainless steel with Casio, but you do on this watch. There is a mixture here of finishes, including some brushing to the upper case and then polishing on the case sides. The finishing isn't outstanding, it's not going to blow you away, this is a cheap watch after all, but it will certainly suffice and it kind of works with the style of watch. But because this is a cheaper watch, it's miles cheaper than the Casio Automatic, you do get a big downgrade when it comes to the bracelet and clasp. Now, the bracelet links here are solid and, they feel fine. However, it's when you get to the clasp and the end links that it all kind of falls apart. The upper section to the clasp is only pressed, same with the inner section of the clasp. It feels cheap, it feels a little bit rattly. Same with the end links, they're hollow, they do look a little bit cheap. But because this is a chronograph, that means it's going to look great on straps. If I've learned one thing throughout the years that I've been collecting watches now, it's that the chronograph is probably the most versatile watch when it comes to strap options. Leather straps, NATO straps, rubber straps, they eat them all up for breakfast. And because this dial doesn't have any colour, it's just black and silver, that means you're pretty much going to be able to wear any strap with this watch. Of course, the dial here is just as sporty as the case. A silver sunray finished, applied indexes. It's quite flashy, maybe a little bit over the top, but I think in totality it works with the case and bezel. One unusual thing about this watch though that I've not seen on another chronograph is that usually a chronograph doesn't feature a running central seconds. Typically the running seconds on a chronograph is on one of the subdials. Here though, Casio have used that large central seconds as the actual seconds hand to tell the time, and your chronograph seconds is at the 6 o'clock. Something I've never seen on a chronograph before, but I actually think it's quite a good feature. Because one thing I have always disliked about chronographs is that when that chronograph seconds is stationary on the dial, it's always blocking the logo. And I always think surely there's a better way to do this without blocking the dial. That's one reason why I like the Goofy Panda from Studio Underdog, is because they've cleverly done the dial design so that the branding is off to either side of that chronograph seconds hand. I do think on the bracelet this watch does look quite dressy because of that silver dial, but of course putting it on a leather strap massively dresses it down and makes it way more casual. Now on the bracelet this watch does wear well. I actually think it wears better than the Casio Automatic. Case diameter comes in at 40mm, lug to lug comes in at 47mm, and case thickness is just 10.5mm. Lug width on this one is 20mm, so there's endless strap options in terms of what you compare it with. And this watch does wear quite large, because of the flatness of the case, but I think that's what gives this watch a little bit of personality. It's got quite a lot of wrist presence because of those large lugs and because of the silver dial and the amount of detail on it, but it looks super sporty and it's just got some charm about it. Now that 10.5mm thickness actually does include the crystal too. Crystal here is a piece of sapphire. Yes, sapphire. Obviously not something you usually see from Japanese brands at this sort of price, but of course it's more than welcome. Clarity here is actually pretty good. Usually affordable watches with sapphire, you know, they don't use any anti-reflective treatment and you tend to get loads of glare. The sapphire looks a little bit murky. Here though, either Casio has used some anti-reflective treatment or because of that silver dial, reflections are kept minimal. Now listen, this is a super cheap watch. This comes in under £100. So obviously at that sort of price point, it's going to have a couple of flaws, a couple of things that you're going to have to put up with. As mentioned, the bracelet and clasp does feel a little bit cheap, but of course that is a flaw that can be easily fixed. Get yourself a £30 strap and everything will feel really premium, because the actual head of the watch does feel sturdy and well built. Now this watch is of course using a quartz movement, and that means when you push in the buttons, you don't get much response from them. With a mecha quartz and a mechanical chronograph, you get a nice crunch when you push in the pushers. However, here it's just soft, and it certainly doesn't give you that satisfaction that a mechanical or a mecha quartz chronograph does. And one thing I've always got to point out, a 4:30 date window, you know what, it just hurts my head. Please just put the date window at the 6 o'clock for perfect symmetry. It just looks a bit odd when the date window is in the middle of nowhere. But the good thing about this one is that I've had no QC issues. Even though this one is less than half the price of the Casio Automatic, everything on it lines up, there's no dodgy finishing. I suppose I just got a bit of a dud when I bought the Casio Automatic because every other Casio I've had in the past has been fine, and this one is fine too. Now there are a few different versions of this. Obviously I've got the silver and black one. I found a blue dial online if you want a little bit of colour, and there's also a black dial one which features silver sub-dials. And I found all versions going for less than £100 here in the UK, which, you know, for sapphire, stainless steel, a good looking watch, it's a pretty compelling package from Casio. As mentioned, I've really got into my chronographs over the past year, and one thing that I've realised is that there's not a lot of good chronographs for this sort of price. There are some good ones for, you know, £500 and over, you'll find some good ones there, but when you get to the really affordable end of the market, you know, under £250, under £100, that's when you really start to struggle to find anything of quality, and you also struggle to find something that's got a little bit of character about it. This one is jam-packed with vintage charm, it's got a racing aesthetic, it's super sporty, it's a casual watch, but I think if you're a collector who enjoys playing around with straps, this one is going to be a great addition to your collection because it's going to pretty much pull off anything that you own. So although I didn't quite vibe with the Casio Automatic, listen, I'm a Casio fan. This is a brilliant chronograph for £100, dare I say the best chronograph that I've tried at this price. And if you was to ask me which one I'd rather wear, this or the Casio Automatic, I genuinely would pick this, put it on a NATO strap and have some fun. I'll try and leave a couple of links below for this one if you want to check it out. If you enjoyed the video, hit like, hit subscribe, I appreciate you. And go and check out my Casio Automatic review if you haven't seen it yet, see why I think this one is better. Go and check it out, I'll see you over there. Bye for now.